My mama calls me a logophile. I love deep dives into etymology with Mr. Short, or just seeing how many times I can say the word butter in a row before it loses all meaning. I love Compline and Chapel for the safe and lyrical repetition of the words every week, crag and stronghold. I love the phrases that casually blend themselves into my friends' vocabulary, a constant rotation of TikTok references, or spontaneous country accents, or unannounced Shakespearean monologues. I've always loved words. Growing up, I would traverse Chattanooga with notebook in hand, trying to conjure the most fantastical way to describe any and everything until it sounded like a thesaurus had vomited nonsense onto the page. An iridescent geyser of inundation drowns a nearby lilac bed, I would write, which just meant my neighbor's garden hose had a leak. I loved the way the words I would choose could alter reality and make even the smallest details seem important. As a kid, I would positively consume words. One childhood anecdote that Mac loves to mock me for is that I would ride my bike in circles around the neighborhood with one book pressed open against the handlebars and another separate audiobook playing from my wicker basket. And as impressive and or comical as my cognitive experiment may have looked from the outside, it resulted in a lot of skinned knees and probably some long-term neural damage. Growing up, I genuinely just couldn't read enough. The word world always felt too big for my own descriptions, and so the words of others offered a compass when things got too confusing. No matter what the issue, there was always a poet or a YA protagonist who had been there first and could guide me through it. My brain was, and frankly still is, a swirling, tangled mess of songs, lyrics, novels, poems, all feeding into one another as I tried and often failed to articulate the world around me. But one of the stories that defined me the most, one which I still revere in a way I can only describe as religious, is Antony de Saint-Exupéry's The Little Prince. And they gave me a mic, and now you have to listen to me talk about it. So there's this pilot, and when he's young, he wants to be an artist. But everybody tells him that an artist isn't a real career, so he becomes pilot instead. And so the dude's a pilot now, and one thing leads to another, and the book opens with him crashed in the Sahara Desert with no food or water. And then, in the best moment in literary history, this little blonde kid, who I personally imagine to look just like Owen Pate or Eli Wilson, appears and demands that the pilot draw him a sheep. Eventually, the pilot learns that this kid is from an asteroid B612 to be precise, and that he found his way to Earth in search of adventure and freedom and yada yada, and met some folks both good and bad along the way, blah blah blah, and is now trying to get back home to B612. And I'm leaving out key details here because this is my formal pitch for The Little Prince to become a graduation requirement, and I don't want to spoil too much of it for the uninitiated, but that's the gist. And young Charlie took 3 lessons away from this book. 1, becoming a pilot is the moral equivalent to selling out. No offense to any aspiring pilots out there, I'm sure it's a lovely profession. 2, grown-ups are confused most of the time too. They're just better at pretending that they aren't. And 3, the truest endeavor of humanity is to find its way home. And as far as I was concerned, this 3rd and final lesson made perfect sense to me. What else were all of these other poets talking about? Yeats says that peace can only be found among the comfort of the bee-loud glade. Come hither, says Mary Carroll, too long from the fireside you roam. The goal of real joy that you seek is found nowhere else but home. John Donahue says that without the sky of home to look back to, the horizon ahead is just an unframed mound of dirt. And so I couldn't help wondering, where was my shining beacon? I felt really displaced as a kid, and sometimes I still do. Because of a variety of factors, both physically and mentally, I really struggled to find a place that I felt was wholly mine. Home was a really complicated word that carried a lot of weight for me, and I remember feeling such envy for friends who seemed to bear it so carelessly. This is my home, they would say, and you could tell that they meant it without the question mark at the end. And so, I did what I believed Exupéry and Yeats and all of the other authors who dictated my life were telling me to do. I went searching for a place to call home, applied to a handful of boarding schools, picked the one that welcomed the loudest, packed up everything I owned, and left for Sewanee. And for 4 years now, I have been humbled and honored every day to have found exactly what I was looking for. I'll spare you too much of my gushing because anyone who knows me knows that I love SAS to a degree bordering on insanity. But I did truly find a home on this campus, and I am eternally grateful for it. And now I'm leaving. And I was really upset about it earlier this year. The looming reality of feeling displaced again, of not having a place to point to and claim as my own in just a few short months. I found my home. I thought, I won this game. So why do I have to feel lost all over again? So I did what I always do when I'm feeling particularly down. I reread The Little Prince. And it was in this rereading that I found myself drawn not to the homecoming narrative that I had defined myself with for so long, but with a passage I had barely dwelled over at all. One not about homecoming, but about departure. And so, as I have for 18 years now, I'd like to use Exupery's words to describe it better than I can. The following is a heavily abbreviated excerpt because Emma told me that my talk was already too long. I lost it. "My life is very monotonous," said the fox. "I hunt chickens, men hunt me. All the chickens are just alike, and all the men are just alike, and in consequence, I am a little bored. But if you tame me, it will be as if the sun came to shine on my life. I shall know the sound of a step that will be different from all the others. Other steps will send me hurrying back underneath the ground. Yours can win me like music out of my burrow. And then, look, you see the grain fields down yonder? I do not eat bread. Wheat is of no use to me. The wheat fields have nothing to say to me, and that is sad. But you have hair that is the color of gold. Think of how wonderful that will be once you have tamed me. The grain, which is also golden, will bring me back to the thought of you, and I shall love to listen to the wind in the wheat." The fox gazed for a long time. "Please," he said, "tame me." So the boy tamed the fox, and when the hour of his departure grew near, "Ah," said the fox, "I shall cry." "It is your own fault," said the boy. "I never wished you any sort of harm, but you wanted me to tame you." "Yes, that is so," said the fox. "But now you are going to cry," said the boy. "Yes, that is so," said the fox. "Then it has done you no good at all." "It has done me plenty good," said the fox, "because of the color of the wheat fields." "Goodbye," he said. "Goodbye," said the fox. "And now here is my secret, a very simple secret. It is only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye." "What is essential is invisible to the eye," the boy repeated, so that he would be sure to remember. "It is the time we have wasted that makes it so important. It is the time I have wasted," said the boy, so that he would be sure to remember. One of those final lines, the one about seeing rightly, is inscribed on a headstone at the Sewanee Cemetery. I don't know who the person is, but I'm pretty sure I'm in love with them. I stumbled across the epitaph on an early morning stop to visit a friend and just broke down into tears. Time and time again, the words of The Little Prince and the ways it has ubiquitously woven itself into my life offers a reminder that when you remember to look around, you'll find what it was you were looking for. I spent most of my life looking for home, hunting down a metaphorical asteroid that would solve all of my problems. What I didn't realize until recently is that what I was actually looking for, in Exupery's words, was to be tamed. And when I stopped obsessing over finding a place that I could say belonged to me, I found myself belonging instead. And as sad as I am to be leaving and to discover that physical home, even once you've found it, can still be a temporary thing, I'm learning to be grateful for the privilege of having something worth saying goodbye to. So after I reread The Little Prince the other night, I went through all of my old journals and read all of the moments of wasted time that I had deemed important enough to put pen to paper. The major themes included quad hammocks and res swims and long hikes and late night campfires and all those other SAS things. But mostly, though, I had written down my favorite words and phrases I had overheard exchanged between the people I loved. Frankly, it was a lot of crude jokes, but dispersed among whatever my friends and I are usually giggling about in the back of calculus class, I'm sorry, Mr. Johnson, are philosophical arguments among teammates, small quips from Mother Short, and nonsensical comments muttered by my roommate in her sleep. The words I had chosen to pay attention to, both others and my own, were what created a sense of home. And as the hour of my departure grows near, trust me, I will cry. But I'm learning to be grateful for the ways that being tamed by SAS extends beyond campus bounds. How the stars will never look better than they do in Sewanee, how every black dog looks a little bit like Sheba, and how the box of geese will always sound like a poop-covered track and the best 4x4 relay the world has ever seen. And with all of that in mind, I hope you've found a home within one another and within yourself. I hope you find a good book to remind you what it is you're really looking for, and I hope you'll write down somewhere the ways you've wasted time so that you'll be sure to remember. Thank you all for everything.